Although we are in the throes of a pandemic of historic proportions, there is a political battle being waged over upcoming elections, especially in key swing states: Florida, Arizona, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan.
But Michigan was squarely in President Trump's sights today over the issue of mail-in voting. The president tweeted out a scathing rebuke of Michigan's Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, and he wrote, and I'm quoting here, "Michigan sends absentee ballot applications to 7.7 million people ahead of primaries and the general election. This was done illegally and without authorization by a rogue Secretary of State. I will ask to hold up funding to Michigan if they want to go down this voter fraud path."
The tweet has since been deleted as people pointed out that this information was not correct.
That's true. And joining us now to discuss the matter, we are joined by Eric Claville.
That's right. He's the director of the Center of African American Public Policy at Norfolk State University. Welcome to the program. Are you with us?
I am. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Well, why don't you tell us what you make of the president's tweet today and what implications that has?
Sure. Well, the president's tweet was based on fallacy. And as we've seen over and over again, these tactics of fear-mongering creates this unfair and false narrative in which individuals end up reacting over from an emotional standpoint as opposed to a fact-based standpoint, which we'll go over today.
Now, President Trump barely won Michigan in 2016, gave him the electoral votes that he needed to become elected and go on to the White House. But what are your thoughts about his firm stance against mail-in balloting?
Well, according to, let's look at a few numbers here. And of course, all of this is politics as well. But according to the Heritage Foundation, their own database, since 1991, they've only recorded and found only 206 cases of absentee ballot fraud. That's since 1991. There are 5 states that conduct what we call all mail-in voting ballots. And in those states, there have only been less than 10 cases of fraud itself. Now, according to the National Conference of State Legislators, they list a lot of advantages and some disadvantages to this system. But overall, fraud is not one of them. Now, with a state like Michigan, in which President Trump barely won, he's pulling out all the stops in order to win this election in that particular state and to secure his numbers. One of the issues that we see with absentee voting and mail-in voting is that it allows a lot of individuals who may have jobs that they can't leave to go vote. It allows individuals who normally may forget about voting to actually vote and have enough time in order to cast their votes. Traditionally, this benefits individuals who tend to vote Democratic. Individuals that tend to vote more conservative, more on the Republican side, those individuals are going to the polls more often. Those individuals tend to know when they're absentee voting or when they can vote in their various jurisdictions. So this is seen as a type of voter suppression on many levels.
So why is it so hard for them to accept this, to have this mail-in voting when we've seen it in other states where it's worked?
Well, this is where we get to the political part. So if it works in your favor in politics, we're all for it. If it doesn't work in your favor, we're going to fight against it. We saw this during the 8 years of President Obama's presidency and the Republican Party about the Affordable Health Care Act, known by the popular name of Obamacare. For 8 years, they were pounding and pounding the surface, stating that we're going to repeal and replace, repeal and replace. There was fear there. Well, after Republicans received power in all 3 offices, and you see that the Affordable Care Act has not been repealed and has not been replaced with anything else. As a matter of fact, they say that we don't want to deal with this right now. So in using that as an example, we see the same tactic being played here as it relates to mail-in voting, not only in the state of Michigan, but across the country as well. Again, it's a part of fear-mongering and voter suppression.
And speaking of voter suppression, we've seen that all over the country, but it continues to amaze me that we can do everything else online. We can bank, we can pay our bills, we can do all those things. The mail seems to work just fine. Is that our best weapon against suppression, the mail-in and possibly online?
Well, again, any system can be tampered with. You can have fraud in any system. However, based upon the numbers, based upon the studies, based upon 30+ years of mail-in voting and studying the numbers, the tendency for fraud and the protections that states have that have all mail-in elections, we see that there is a lower tendency and propensity for voter fraud. So this could be the answer. It also could be the answer as it relates to saving dollars as we look at our budgets, being in the pandemic that we are and the economic downturn that we're taking, but we're on the rebound. This could be the answer to it.
All right. Well, great insight. Eric Claville, the director of the Center for African American Public Policy at Norfolk State University. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.